That's nowhere near as bad as you communicated it to me.
It felt like I missed every other note, but it's not as bad as I remembered.
It incredibly rarely is. I mean, sometimes, every once in a while, no, that was as bad as I thought it was. In my experience, that's incredibly rare. Emilio just played, he's got a recital on Sunday, and last night played the entire Vice suite he's doing. And he's like, it was awful. I hated it. And I said, dude, wait till you hear the recording. And then I got a text this morning at 6 a.m. that was, I watched it and you were right. It's a lot better than I thought. You have to think the jury is still out until I can watch and listen to the recording.
1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Cool. All right. Well, I'm about to hop on my call with Chris in just a second here. A review of my masterclass with Marko Topchii. That was freaking amazing. Gonna pull up the Zoom. This should work. Hey, how's it going, Chris? What's up?
Hello.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good.
Tell me about the Twitch thing before you record. What do you want? I'm not familiar with Twitch. I know about it, but I've never been on it.
Cool. So we are actually on it right now, if that's okay.
Okay. That's fine.
It's exactly the same as like live streaming to YouTube. I've been doing Twitch way longer than YouTube. That's where I started out. And then I've been trying to move everything over. People like to tune into these things live, and then they can like drop comments. After asking people and like doing a YouTube poll, it's worth going back and editing and trying to like clean up, like take out spots like right now. So
that's fine.
yeah. Which actually makes me think I want to give a shout out to anybody who might be interested. I could definitely use help with video editing. If anybody out there wants to get paid to help, the ideal person would be somebody who is already watching it anyways, because doing the video editing like quadruples the work on my side, and it's worth it, but it's a lot of time. And so I don't know if any of your students might be interested in that. Just throwing that out there.
I'm trying to think of... I'll see. One of the graduate students may have some experience with that. I'll find out. I don't know if my undergrads do.
Yeah. And, it's a really useful skill also. I think for musicians, it's kind of necessary.
Oh, God.
Or not necessary, but it's like very useful.
Dude,
to know
it's
video.
becoming...
Yeah.
It is becoming, I mean, whether it's like for what I do for Aaron Green, which is, audio engineering, video production, that kind of thing. But even if they're just doing something for their Instagram feed or something, there's some level of editing going on, whether they're doing Final Cut or just their phone.
Yeah.
But the more and more of this self-representation that we have as artists, the more important that particular tool becomes, unless you are completely what I call tech insecure.
Right, and it's a skill that you have to learn, and it's really painful. Like, I'm having to do it right now for Mujo a lot. Like, yesterday I did a 10-minute ad-lib, just kind of like demoing a few things about the recent like freemium update, and I'm starting Android and other things. But it was like a 10-minute little ad-lib script thing, and then I spent the rest of the day editing. Yeah, 10 minutes down to 6 minutes for YouTube, and then 6 minutes down to 45 seconds for...
Right.
And it's just so much work. Anyways, like, I'm happy to teach anybody if they're interested in learning.
Now, you had wanted to shift gears a little bit today because you wanted to evaluate your performance in that masterclass.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. So I DM'd Marko, and I haven't heard back yet about showing his commentary, but I didn't really want to go over the whole masterclass anyways, either way.
Okay. You can always kind of save that for, like, if you wanted to have that as an extra or something for one of your things. You could always put that up there.
For those who don't know, I performed in a masterclass with Marko Topchii last week, and it was an amazing experience. I'm still surprised that they let me do it. So I followed...
This was the Connecticut Guitar Guild, right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah. So I followed Nick and Rafi, and So like you'll see it in the video, but I was just like, I don't know why I'm last. Like I'm a hobbyist. So it was fun. Like my goal was to try to get on stage and get that adrenaline and nerves. Like this piece is way earlier in the development than other things that I've performed. Like I've done 2 stage performances at Heart. I did Julia Florida and the Prelude from the First Cello Suite and Mysterious Habitats. This one is still very much in development. I think it's performable. I don't regret it, but nerves came up, and we'll see how it goes. You didn't see it, did you?
No.
Okay, cool. So we will review it.
You'll get my first. What do they call that on YouTube when people watch something for the first time? Reaction video.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. So let's see. I can share sound. If anybody's watching right now on Twitch or YouTube, just let me know if this is working correctly, because there's a lot of technical stuff going on. I am a guitar hobbyist, so I don't know. Also, I'll say that the audio was terrible from my camera, so I had to apply like a lot of EQ and like voice isolation and stuff, so, forgive that. I'm going last. This might be the worst Vals 3 that you've ever heard, but I'm a little bit nervous, not gonna lie.
I understand, but if there's anything that I can tell you, well, basically you can play the way you want and you don't have to be pressurized like that. There'll be a general observation for like everyone who was here today. Like I know that a masterclass is a stressful situation, usually more stressful than a competition for me. Like I hate playing for people that are just like 1 meter away from me, but at the same time, I can say from my side that I positively don't care. Like, I positively don't care. Not that I don't care about you or general, but like positively don't mind you being on a certain stage at a certain stage, because we're kind of like here to like look into how to make things work in general. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you don't want to play the whole piece, also you don't have to play it. You can play a mode like that.
Okay. I think I'll try to do the whole thing, and then, I guess we'll stop if needed. Thank you. Wait, I'm sorry. I just realized you probably don't see the actual video,
Nope.
do you?
Oh, I didn't know you had video. There you go.
Yeah, my bad.
That's okay.
Like now, the nerves, the adrenaline is like coming back just watching it. I'm like,
okay, no PTSD from a masterclass, okay?
Yeah.
Like none of that.
Bit.
We are going to go back to the video for one or two things just to show you what's happening, but we don't need to do it right now. Okay. That's nowhere near as bad as you communicated it to me.
It felt way worse than it sounds. Yeah. Like the moment after, I mean, you told me to call you, and like it felt like I missed every other note, but it's not as bad as I thought, as I remembered. So
it never is. I mean, well, let me rephrase that. It incredibly rarely is. I mean, sometimes, every once in a while, no, that was as bad as I thought it was. But in my experience, that's incredibly rare. Okay, Emilio just played. He's got a recital on Sunday, and last night in the evening with guitar, he played the entire Vice Suite he's doing, and he was like, "It was awful. I hated it." And I said, "Dude, wait till you hear the recording. I'm sure that you're gonna feel different because it really was quite good." And then I got a text this morning at 6 a.m. that was, "I watched it, and you were right. It's a lot better than I thought." Because what we do, and this is what's going to lead me into a couple of things. Most of the time, we judge. We don't evaluate. Right?
Okay.
And in our judgments are almost entirely feeling based. That felt bad, so it must have been bad. Okay? And certainly I did that for a very long time. Okay? When we're being critical of ourselves, right? We've heard things like, well, we're our own worst judge and all these things. Well, there's a reason. And the reason why we're our own worst judge is we're not separating the fact from the feeling. Right? So most of the time when you play, unless you do something really stellar and it just hits you, you have to think the jury is still out until I can watch and listen to the recording. One, you need a little bit of distance from it, as you saw. It's like this was 5 days ago, right? This was Sunday. And so now you listen, and you've listened to it already, but when you listen, it's just like you get a little distance, and with that distance comes a little bit more perspective, so you can be objective rather than subjective. That's the first thing. Okay? There are two main points of what I saw in your performance. One, and we'll go back to a video, the reason for most of the things that you missed in terms of notes had to do with the locking up of the right arm. And how can you tell when the right arm locks up is you will generally see an underarch here, which you don't see. Go back through any lesson and you will not see this.
Yeah.
You might see a little bit of ancillary motion or things that you don't intend, but this brings up a really interesting point. You can play the piece here, right? You learn the piece, and now you play the piece really well. Performing the piece is a different scale.
Okay.
So, like, you know, hey, you should have heard me in my living room, like, you know, or like heard me an hour ago, or any of these things. Well, they're real. It really does, not just to us. It really did sound better when we were playing because no one's around.
Yeah.
Our environment has not affected our performance. Essentially, you put one person right there. I mean, you're pretty comfortable playing around me. I don't think you get nervous anymore.
Yeah, not anymore,
right.
At least, yeah.
So what's the difference? You change the person and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't know you. You're an unknown factor. And when it's someone you don't know, there's a little bit of an increase. When it's someone you know who just won a GFA, in your mind, it's like, you know.
And like one of my few times playing in like a church with a whole audience watching and everything. Yeah.
Well, now that, who's in the audience can make a difference. How many people are in the audience can make a difference. And just to clarify, this is seltzer, not beer.
Nice. This is water, not vodka.
Yeah, yes. Right, that's not moonshine. So I'll tell you that when I was a student, it always brought me a great sense of comfort to have my teacher in the audience. Some people feel different about that. Like you're playing a recital, you're playing something. And it always brought me a great deal of comfort to have Provo there. Okay. There was one time when I didn't know Giulio was in town.
Okay.
And I heard his laugh. And he was sitting right next to Provo. All of a sudden, my comfort level went right out the window. Because I'd played for Oscar twice, and this was before we had developed a friendship. I was maybe 25 or 26. I was still a student. And he's in the audience like, oh my God, I think Oscar's here. And that immediately jacks you up. Here's the thing. Why should I let that affect me and any different? Because this was perfect. Here's a guy that I played for at that time only one time. And he was like, it was an intense class, but I think I'd done the Tres Piezas Españolas by Rodrigo. So here's the one person that brings me incredible amount of comfort. And then here's a person who has brought me an incredible amount of, I don't want to say nervousness, but, you know, I didn't know him well yet. So he's just this legendary figure. And they're sitting right next to each other, and it just occurred to me backstage, okay, wait a minute. This is like a zero-sum game. It's like one should just completely wipe the other out, and it's fine. And I went out and I played, and I wasn't any more nervous than I normally was in front of Provo, okay? But the first thing that we have to accept is that in any performance situation, nervousness is a part of the career. Period. That nervousness may result in a little tiny handshake. Like, my ring finger shakes a little bit in the first 30 seconds of every concert, period. It has. I used to have very shaky hands way back in the day, and my reaction to those shaky hands were exactly what you did, which is I try harder.
Okay, yeah.
So I add tension to an already tense situation.
Yeah.
Right? It's like if like you might as well be doing this on stage, you know. It's like you can feel how tight it is, and now we have to fight through that. And so I'm going to guess that the sensation that you had, especially in the B and more so the C section, was it felt like you were going through concrete or molasses.
Yeah, something like that, I guess. Yeah.
That's us trying to execute all of those things that you already do well and that you can already do under extreme duress. And that's what it feels like. It feels like it's going in slow motion, like I'm fighting, like everything. It was hard. It was tight. Okay. So that's the first thing is that there was a lot of locking up. And dealing with that is a slightly longer term solution. There are some things you can do that are real quick. Others are going to require more controlled experimentation. Like you're going to need to come to studio class before you do the next one. Come to studio class and see how that works in front of the students at heart.
If I can,
then,
yeah, would love
well,
to.
Of course you can. Now,
Okay,
for those of you watching, we're going to call this pedagogical observation rather than auditing a class.
Of course.
You'll be our guest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
So that's the first step. Is you need to do it in a controlled environment with people that you like. You know these people, but you also know that they're good players. So that's going to jack you up just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you see how you respond, and then you make whatever adjustments you need to make. Then you do that in an evening with guitar, and like you said, you came and as our community guest, you played what 2-3 times?
Twice. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first experience is going to jack you up a little bit, and then you're going to rise to the occasion. The next one is going to jack you up a little further, and maybe do that once or twice. Again, controlled experimentation. That's going to raise your level. Essentially, part of the reason that you had such an extreme reaction to those nerves was instead of doing that, you did this.
It was a pretty big jump. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I didn't even know. I think I found out like Friday. I was like, oh, John's going to do that? That's really cool. And then we texted and it's like, oh, you were playing the class, which is cool. And it was a last minute opportunity for them. They got him like 2 weeks ago. So it was really like, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this thing. It wasn't like I have months to prepare for that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the situation itself is a little unreal.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by that? Because that can sound bad. What I mean by that is this. Normally when we're playing a concert, we've got a lot of lead time. When we're going to play in a class, we know weeks, if not months in advance. And that gives us time to prepare progressively. But sometimes, man, like when I played for John Williams, I think I knew 2 weeks in advance. It was like, okay.
Yeah, I just
Right?
don't think that is the thing. Like, I don't think preparing more would have necessarily helped here because I've been playing this piece a lot. Like, I feel like retiring it at this point.
No,
like
wait, hang on.
I'm performing
I agree
it
with
a
you.
lot, even. Yeah.
The play, the perform.
Yeah,
So how
yeah,
many
yeah.
times in an audience situation have you performed this piece?
A decent handful. I performed it in the airport when my flight was delayed. Like
Okay,
that's another like nerves jacking up sort of thing.
But that's not you on a stage.
Right. Yeah, I haven't done
So-
stage.
See,
Like this
that's
was the first
my
one.
point.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Now freeze.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
The reason why I say in front of an audience like that is, man, I played restaurant gigs my whole life from 14 till I was 28. I was playing 9 hours every weekend for 14 years. So why was I so nervous at my junior recital when I literally have played this for dozens of hours for hundreds of people? Because it wasn't just me on stage. The environment, the arena was literally different.
Yeah.
That's why. Now, we can get to the whole retire the piece thing in a minute. Okay? But that's my point is that when we're talking about we're desensitizing ourselves through that progressive increase in, like, you're in a classroom surrounded by Emilio and Nick and Dominic and guys that you know.
Yeah.
You jacked up a little bit. It's in a classroom. Then you're an evening with guitar. Now you're on a stage, but you're in an environment where you have achieved a level of comfort. You know these people, most of them, and you've been on that stage before. Then you can start looking at situations like, doing a class in front of, a great player who you respect in a big church where there's an audience, and it feels like that. You have risen to the occasion through those kind of incremental successes. So that's the first thing, is what we do, okay? And its effect on us physiologically. So because with this particular piece, we didn't have that, we've got a greater amount of unknown and how that affects us, and bang. And that's really one of the things. Because if you look at your Evening with Guitar videos, you'll notice you don't see that level of locking up.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's the first thing. Because it's not like there's something in here that has been a monumental struggle for you. Right? No. Because you think, here's how well I'm playing the piece. How well I perform the piece, we have to look at those other elements. Okay? And that's why I wanted to talk about that first. Because if we don't accept that, we don't have a clear perspective on what's the criteria I'm evaluating. All I see is, I didn't feel very good about my playing, I missed some notes, but I was really tight and this and this. Well, we got to be able to establish first where that comes from. And then look at its effect on our technique and on our expression. Because there were a lot of musical ideas that came through really nicely. And then you can hear ones that didn't. Why didn't they? Because you're playing, you might as well have been in a cast, But not for the whole thing. You will see areas where you didn't have that. Okay? So that's the first thing. Now, what happened in that moment in the class? Okay? This is a little bit of the dad in me coming out now. Not like I'm your dad, but with my kids. The first thing that you did when you got on that stage was say what?
I'm a hobbyist. I was going to ask what you think of that.
And what was the next thing?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going last. I think that was it.
Go back. Oh, no.
What else? Yeah.
It was something along the lines of...
Oh, this might fall apart or something like that.
That, there.
Yeah.
You just made a self-fulfilling prophecy, my friend. Okay?
I don't feel like that actually made the performance worse. If anything, that self-deprecating joke feels like it lightens the tension for me. But it definitely sets expectations to the listener. This might go badly.
What it does. The humor part, you're right. It does lighten the mood. Tell a guitar joke then. Do anything you need to.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a guitar player and a large pepperoni pizza?
I don't know.
Pepperoni pizza can feed a family of 4.
Nice.
Right? I mean, there's a ton of them. But my point is this. When we go up there, every single one of us, with very few exceptions, and I'm not going to name names, but very few exceptions, all of us feel that way to some degree.
Yeah.
We all feel like we could have done more. We all feel like we could have done this instead of that. Every single one of us, to varying degrees. Okay, for me, the first thing is, man, I should have taken 2 weeks off of teaching at school. Or I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have. We all do that because that is cognitive performance anxiety. Okay, it's the kind that affects our brain. The physiological stuff we know, man, cold hand, shaky hand, tight hand, all that stuff. And the only way to work the physiological stuff out is to do it more in those controlled progressive environments and be able to respond. We got to literally practice it out of us. The cognitive stuff, that takes... Sorry, my furnace just kicked on. The cognitive stuff, that takes a little bit more preparation. And the reason why I'm drawing our attention to this is I can't think of a single player who plays well, who can play well, not believing that they have a chance to play well.
Okay.
It isn't like we're going to lie to ourselves. We're not being dishonest. But we need all the confidence in the world to get on that stage by yourself. You're not in a chamber. When I teach the Building a Music Career class, how many of you suffer from performance anxiety, and everyone raises their hand minus one or two. And I say, in orchestra or band, okay, there's like 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
In chamber
Yeah.
music, there's like 12 people. In
Yeah.
solo situations, now there's 20.
Yeah.
During concertos, and every single person raises their hand, what is it? The less people there are, the more nervous you get.
Yeah. That, I mean, it all totally makes sense. Like, but if you put yourself in my shoes, I guess, where like the context is that this was after, like, I don't know, an hour and a half or 2 hours of like really high level, brilliant, like constructive, workshopping with Nick and with Rafi, and just like super detailed and amazing. And then like, I don't know.
And then little old me.
Yeah, like I feel like I should set expectations somehow. Like I should say something that's like,
You could have stopped.
I'm not studying, a conservatory.
You could have said that. You could have just stopped at just so that you know,
I'm an amateur, I'm a hobbyist.
or I'm a hobbyist, or I'm an enthusiast, or whatever term you are comfortable with. I like enthusiast because I think it expresses the true desire of why we're doing all this.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my personal favorite. But hobbyist, I got no problem with that. Amateur, immediately, because of our culture, that word now, it denotes they're not very good.
Yeah, but it's fascinating because the original word means art lover, and
I agree.
Like,
I would
most
love
people don't know that. Yeah,
I would love to change that culture, man, because an amateur simply meant they didn't do this for a living.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with how good or bad they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I'm totally cool with that, man. I mean, you were just saying, "Oh, hi, I'm John," and just so you know, I'm not in a graduate program like these guys.
Right. But like, leave it there. Like, don't need to
leave it there.
Don't need to
because
say this is going to fall apart or anything.
Yeah. What that does is it puts us in a siege mentality. We are literally under attack, and we are already under attack from ourselves when we get up on that stage. Because of what's going through our mind. I'll tell you, when I perform, I can get distracted because I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat when it's over.
Okay.
And immediately I'm distracted. So I've learned not to do that. And it's taken a few concerts back in the day to be able to stay in the music instead of thinking about the large steak that I'm going to eat when this is all over or whatever, right? I can't overemphasize the importance of what you do before you play. And I don't mean like our rituals, like I put on 2 pairs of socks and maybe some people eat bananas or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're on stage, my friend, that is all about you. This is your feelings about a piece. It's sharing your love for the music or the instrument or whatever. And from the moment that we're up there, in our minds and our bodies, physiologically, we are reacting as if we are under attack. So every single thing that I can do, man, I've even known people who power pose before they go on.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're backstage literally going like,
yeah.
Because it fills you with a sense of confidence and whatever, But then Scott Tennant and I are backstage before a concert and we're just like, yeah, man. Hey, did you see that new Star Wars thing? I mean, like, we're not even thinking about the concert. We just go out and we play. We're talking about, well, why was Mace Windu's lightsaber purple? It's like, that comes with a certain amount of seasoning. But when I'm playing a concert in New York on the 19th or 20th, and I can tell you, I've never played in this particular venue. I don't know many of the people, and I'm not going to let any of those things affect me. Only because I've had enough of a career doing this to get to a point where, yeah, man, my ring finger is probably going to shake a little bit in the first 30 seconds. And if I'm going to buzz a note or squeak something, it's going to be right then.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you know what happens? The rest of the concert's great because I just now have confirmed that this is not going to be a note perfect hour. At that point, I'm not even trying to play note perfect anymore. And even for me, I don't try to play note perfect anymore because as soon as I do, that's what happens. Is I get tighter.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, just overall, then, like, I kind of expected it might end up that way, and I was looking for
Mm-hmm.
that experience, that exposure of that level of nerves, like making that big of a
Yeah.
jump compared to what I've done before.
Mm.
Not having played this piece on stage before.
Right.
Um,
And
like
I mean,
in
look, I'm glad that you did the opportunity. Don't get me wrong, dude. If
yeah.
somebody came by and they said in 2 weeks you have the opportunity to do this, jump on it.
Yeah, I think Marissa Sando is coming up.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, in retrospect, for my guitar development, do you
Mhm.
think it was the right call as opposed to playing something that I've been learning or that is like, just more battle hardened, like Julia Florida or something?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I have I have a perspective that has two sides to this.
Mm-hmm.
And Marco nailed it
Mm-hmm.
right at the beginning when he said, "Look, man, you could play half the piece.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You could play a piece you're just learning. You could play a piece that you have played for years." He was like, I'm essentially his point was, "Look, I'm just going to observe and listen and tell you what I think." Partially so that anybody would just like relax and just not worry about it. But at the same time, I think that there are two distinct perspectives on playing in a master class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One is that it should be a piece that you can nail absolutely cold, buried under 10 pounds of concrete that you've played for years. Because the point of it is, I have taken this piece as far as I can go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you help me go further? So in
Mm-hmm.
that case, it's like you want something that like any of the like Julia Florida or Capriccio Rob or any of the pieces that you've played long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's one philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you the other, which is here's a piece I'm currently playing, currently working on, and I'd love to get your help on it. Usually the deciding factor is who it's for,
Mm-hmm.
who's given the class. And if you don't know them well or like, you know, then it's hard to tell. And in that case, I usually default to something that I know very, very well and play very well. So if you were going to play for Gilia, rest in peace, you're going to choose the thing that you know you can nail and that you play better than anything else because that's how that man operated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I've also seen like Antigone Goni in a master class. Literally, I think we talked about it last week, a little bit like at the Guitar Fest. She gave this guy like a 10-year-old a first lesson. Like, could you imagine that was your first lesson?
Yeah.
It was with
Yeah.
Antigone. I mean, and it was one of the most amazing first lessons I ever saw. I got an education just watching it.
Mm-hmm.
It was fantastic. But someone like Bill Cannengeiser, Scott Tennant, when they've given classes, man, it's like they got that vibe where it's like you could, if it's a piece like I just started working on a month ago, I'd love your help taking it further. I've seen them be able to adjust to the level of the student. Meanwhile, someone like Gilia,
Mm-hmm.
no, this is truly the word master is in capital letters.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
not to take anything away from Bill or Scott, because certainly they are masters of the guitar as well. But there's a totally different vibe and a
Yeah.
totally different kind of point to their class because Gilia is not used to working with enthusiasts. He's used to working with pros,
Mm. Mm.
not college students, pros, right?
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
college students,
Mm-hmm.
and then enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us nowadays, though, have had to learn how to be very flexible with who we're teaching,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
I'll give a master class.
Mm-hmm.
It could be all enthusiasts. It could be doctoral students. It could be pros.
Mm-hmm.
And you adjust you adapt to the environment. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the two things. And I love the fact that Marco kind of laid that out there right there. He's like, look, man, it's cool. Just play,
Yeah.
you know?
I just,
So
yeah,
do
I
I.
hope it doesn't come across in any way disrespectful to him because it was
No.
such an amazing opportunity and all the advice that he gave me was completely brilliant and like I think I could verbally relay some of it, but yeah, I don't know. It's like I feel I wouldn't get that level of nervousness playing for like anybody else like at this point.
You wouldn't. But the idea of making that jump,
Uh-huh. I think it was good for me. I mean, I
dude, any
feel.
experience like that's good for you. But
Mhm.
what we were talking about is why that happened.
Yeah.
So that will continue to happen
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
without that progressive incremental
Uh-huh.
increase. Because if you think about that, we're the product of what we practice,
hmm
then what you literally are practicing is playing that way,
Mm. Yeah.
right?
hmm
Rather than that progressive, like think about it like in the gym, progressive overload.
Yeah.
What you did was pick up an 80-pound weight and get 2 reps,
Yeah.
right? And it was an 80-pound rep, man. You went out there and you laid that thing out, and good job. Like you said, I mean, from what you told me, I don't know what I expected, but that was nowhere near as bad as what you told me you thought it was.
Yeah.
But when we look at the things that why did we react that way, that's why.
Mm.
Okay. If you want to be like what it sounds like to me, what your desire is you would like to be able to do that and get out there and do it just as well as you do it right here.
Yeah.
There's a really straight and simple path.
More
This.
smaller performance opportunities. Absolutely.
Just like any success, we build successes upon other smaller successes. There's no, sometimes every once in a while, dude, you take a leap like that and it all works out. But most of the time, when I see an extreme reaction, it's to an extreme situation.
Yeah.
And having been in that situation myself, see, this is a great thing. I mean, I'm gonna be 50 in a couple of months, but I've been doing this a long time. But I'm also young enough to remember what it felt like when I was 17 or
hmm
18.
hmm
A couple years, I might not be able to remember that. you know? So I'm very happy that you did it because it's a great experience.
hmm
Rock on, man. That's awesome.
hmm
But if we're talking about, well, why did this happen and how do I deal with it? It happened because of that.
hmm hmm
How do we deal with it? This particular way.
Right. Right.
That because that way what we can do is literally incrementally deal with each thing as it comes.
Yeah.
Because that was significant physiological performance anxiety is what that was.
Yeah. In the discussion, at one point, he was like, "Oh, your index finger is just twitching on its own." And I was like, "Yeah, it doesn't do that at home. I promise." But like, I mean, I didn't notice like this kind of like any shaking hands like beyond like kind of more like fingers like we're like kind of locking up. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure I was doing that too. I'll look for that in the recording, but like
You'll see this.
I don't know okay, yeah, like the in terms of like shaking hands.
Mhm.
I don't think I was getting much shaking other than like fingers. Like there were
I saw,
definitely
I
like
s- you
some
know,
fingers.
in the
Yeah,
C section, I think there was a chord that didn't quite land,
there
and
were.
you could
Yeah,
see, like, if you look, you'll see your index finger it was rocking and rolling.
yeah, yeah.
When we think about physiological performance anxiety, we go to two places immediately: shaky hands or cold hands.
Mm,
For some people, it's sweaty hands, cold hands. For other people, it's sweaty hands, shaky hands.
mm,
But any physical reaction is physiological. So in the case of that right arm locking up, that's what that was.
yeah.
So I've known people, their hands never shook at all.
Hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
every time that they got in a high pressure situation, their shoulder cocked up like that.
Yeah.
Because it's what we end up, how that situation
Mm-hmm.
affects our own physiology when we play. Some people get numb feet. Like they
Yeah.
literally can't feel their feet. Or they get cold feet. Or they lock up tight. Or a combination of all of that. And I this is the part that's so kind of sickly hilarious to me. It doesn't matter what instrument you play. The very thing you need to do to play that instrument is the thing that's affected. So flute players, their fingers may get it, but most of the time their lower lip quivers.
Hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
very thing they need to make that note is the thing that flips out.
Mm.
Right? Pianists, like all of
Yes.
us that use
Yeah.
our fingers, can get this like shaky hands, tightness. Singers, whew, singers, shortness of breath,
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
like their knees will lock up, like all this, they could get lightheaded because of it. I mean, all sorts of stuff, and it all affects us in different ways. But the way it will affect us is directly impacting the thing we need to play that piece or to do that thing or sing that song. And the way we get rid of it, the first solution is perform more.
Mm-hmm.
Not putting yourself into that situation more, but again, performing more frequently in different environments. Because you in the airport,
Yeah.
that's like me at the restaurant, man. It's like, I've done all this stuff, so why am I freaking out when I'm doing the same exact thing? I'm just on stage because the environment's different,
Yeah.
you know? So that's my kind of overall about is how, like, give yourself when you get on stage,
Mm-hmm.
you can be say, I'm John, I'm an enthusiast, a hobbyist, whatever. This is really great. You can even say I'm a little nervous if you want to, and you're just being honest. That's cool, but it stops there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the second thing is also from the moment you stopped talking to the moment you started playing.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a half a second.
Yeah.
Because what performance anxiety does to us, in addition to all this, is it distorts our perception of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a lot of the comments that I wrote down were like, okay, you got a few missed notes here and there. It's like there was nothing really super egregious. There it was like you had a crash and burn or anything like that.
Okay.
But what happens is that when that distorts our perception of time, it affects the way we phrase.
Mm.
So the amount of time that we would have, like yum dee da dee dum, ba dee da dee dum, right? Now it's all ba dee da dee dum, ba dee da dee dum. Like things are not in the place that we remember them.
Hmm.
And then when we end a phrase, dum bum, yum bum bum, and we didn't take the time that we usually take to set that thing up or to do this thing, right? You ever have like if you've ever had that moment where that was the fastest hour of my life. Guess what? It was the fastest hour of your life. Time kept on going, but your perception of it is what changed. So
Hmm.
when you got that moment again, it's like, okay, I'm not going to look at the clock. I'm at work. I'm not looking at the clock. Okay, it's been an hour, and you look and it's been 8 minutes. It's the longest 8 minutes of your life.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's another reason why when we do that progressive overload
Mm-hmm.
or progressive increase in those things, those are the things we can learn to manage,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, okay, how do we do that, right? So that's my overall on just from watching the class right off the bat, okay? Because most of those things we would deal with in a performance situation, like a performance class. It's like, okay, here's what happens to me. How do I deal with it? Okay, well, we're going to perform it again. And this time I want you to focus on this. I want you to try to stay in the music or this. Did you find that your mind was going to like the mistakes were distracting you and or you were aware? Yeah. So those are now creating this
Yeah.
loop between your physiological and your cognitive.
But your advice of like trying to sing it in my head and
Yes.
like counting it as I was playing, that was really helping. Like I
That's
could
what
feel
kept
that
you
was, yeah, like
that's what kept you on the straight and narrow, man.
I didn't drop everything completely.
No.
Like I didn't have to stop or like didn't break the rhythm too
No.
much. Yeah.
No,
So
and man, nerves are if that starting point is that we have to accept the fact that nervousness is a part of any performance period. It's
mhm.
then how does it affect us and what steps can we take to either minimize or mitigate its effect,
Yeah.
you know? Um, but the one I think that go cuts the deepest and the one that in my experience having been exactly in your shoes, whether I was in school or not, is that I have to believe, just like you and anyone who's watching who wants to perform, I have to believe in myself when I get up there. Because if I don't, then why am I even doing it?
Hmm.
I have to believe that either A, the point of me doing this is I love what I'm doing so much that I want to share it with you. Maybe you just love that piece so much that you want to share your ideas about it with everyone. Or I love playing music and I really feel deeply about this piece and I want you to feel that way too. Because right there, if that's our point, it gets really hard to be distracted. You may find tightness when you get up there, but you keep on that, like, I love that phrase. I love that chord. Or if it's something like, man, I love how metal that is, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like the thing is that you love that you're trying to express. Those are the things that can help keep us, just like the singing and the counting, keep us honest in our performance and help avoid distraction. And in about a minute, you'll find, oh, yeah, my hands are starting to relax. The second you try to control tight or shaky hands, they tighten more and shake more.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, oh, yeah, my hand's shaking. Nothing new.
Yeah.
Carry on. No worries here. So, that is, and that takes a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say long, but it does take a while. It takes at least a few performances of being able to go, you know what? I can do this. I've done it in my lessons. I've done it online to the whole world. They're just not here in the room with me. I've done it in front of those folks. And now I've been in that environment. That way, the new environment may affect you a little bit because it's a church with these great acoustics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And here's Marko. But those are the only new variables.
Yeah.
That to me is why it's so important that we have to believe in what we do, but not to the point of like fooling ourselves or lying to ourselves, like, yeah, I'm the bomb, it's the kind of thing,
Yeah.
But you do have to be able to do that, and I cannot overstate that.
Thanks.
That's that. Now we just spent like the whole lesson going over the class, and that's everything. But would you like to work on it?
Yeah.
You mentioned retiring it. Do you still feel like that's what you want to do?
I mean, I want to keep like concrete goals. I would love to play it at evening.
November
evening.
7th. Consider it done.
November 7th.
So put it on your calendar.
Yeah, I'd love to perform it there. I'd also like to get a final recording of it by the end of the year.
Okay.
We talked
like you mean one of the YouTube recordings that you're doing?
Yes, and also release it on Spotify.
Okay.
Because I just go for it.
Okay.
Like, it's...
Now, when you do that, are you editing that, or are you doing single takes and taking the best single take?
Single takes, yeah. It's my own format that,
No, that's fun. That's what I do with Aaron.
It's going to be the worst performance on Spotify. And
no, it's not, dude. The thing, that right there, you just did it. You just did it.
Yeah.
The reason why I ask is that the preparation for that is really different than kind of preparing for a concert in a way. Because that's what I do with Aaron Green's videos, is they're all single takes, but they're not the first take, right?
Right.
Every once in a while it is, in which case, hey, that's great. Usually it's take 2 or 3. And if it's a guitar that, even though it's an incredible instrument, but it's one that's harder for me to play, it might be take 11. Right? Because there's a buzz that I can't let through, or some slop here and there. Maybe the action's a little higher than I'm used to, whatever. Because they're all not my guitar. So, trying to do that on our own instruments, one thing. Trying to do that on like 4 other instruments that are totally different and not yours is another. And so the way you prepare for that, we can talk about in the coming weeks, because it's just a little bit different in some ways. And in some ways it feels a lot different. But where is one thing that happened in that class that's been bugging you a little bit?
Well, he really was focused on my index finger straightening, which we've talked about in our lessons, but I don't think I've paid as much attention to that problem as like the pinky or like the thumb or like the curl of the middle finger. And I have to champion myself here. I'm really proud of the fact that he mentioned that, and he even said at one point, he was like, other players have problems with their pinky getting tight, but for you it's the index finger. I was like, Guess
When?
what? Yeah,
That's
it used
one
to be.
problem that you yeah.
It used to be my pinky, and like I know I've got work to do elsewhere, but
Dude, everyone's
apparently,
got work to do.
yeah,
We
apparently,
all do.
right. So
Sometimes it's maintaining good stuff. Sometimes it's getting rid of bad stuff.
yeah, so I think my top question is first. I've got 2 hours I'm allowing myself to practice. If I don't self-limit, I'll practice all day long. But I'm giving myself 2 hours a day. Right now, it's an hour of technique, like in the morning. And I've been recently working through Segovia scales, Giuliani arpeggios, and Segovia slurs, like every day.
You can hear it in the improvement in your slurs overall. And when you go back and watch that video, you'll notice that, like, one of the spots that you, like, even though you might have been tight, this.
That one was rough, I feel. But
considering how tight you were and the fact that you still did it, only happened because of the technical work that you've been doing. Because otherwise, that whole thing would have been like.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So when you think of the things that kind of got a little funky, it was like, oh, I just played the wrong bass note. Or, oh, I was playing, or a note that sounded like that.
Yeah, I really think, like, the tension was coming out in the right hand more than the
left.
And,
yeah, man.
Yeah, that's what he focused on in the masterclass. So, yeah, my question was going to be, like, how do you feel about working through Giuliani arpeggios? Like,
I feel great about them.
Okay, all right.
Well, right now our course has been working the Brouwer studies, right, and we're getting into the higher ones. Like we're getting to 8 with the counterpoint, and 7 with the mixture of scales and arpeggios and such.
Yeah.
And so I think we should finish that, so that you've got that as a core, because that covers scales and arpeggios.
Yeah.
And you've got that now also as a performable unit.
Yeah, and so I'm still continuing those. It's good. Like hour of like exercises, I guess, in the morning, like technical exercises, and then in the evenings it's usually like 30 minutes. Like it's an hour of whatever else, but it's usually like 30 minutes of etudes, 30 minutes of repertoire. So I'm still continuing with those Brouwer studies. Yeah.
So I would finish that, but in terms of studies in general, think about it in kind of 3 distinct areas. We have exercises, right? Exercises could be just doing like, or if we were doing like any of the 120 daily exercises, right? Any of that stuff. They're exercises because you really aren't doing anything musically. You might be trying to get a good tone, but 1-5, 1-5, okay.
Yeah.
What happens when we go to 6? Right? What do we do with it? How musically do we express ourselves? So exercises are great, and a lot of times we can do exercises on open strings or the Giuliani 120 or any other number of exercises. Etudes and studies allow us to take what we do with those exercises and now put them into a musical context.
Yeah.
So that's our scrimmage match, right? Between here we are at team practice, now we got our scrimmage, and then we can go to the big game in terms of the rep. And that same philosophy works in performance. I'm performing for my friends. I'm performing for new people. And now here's the big show. So there's always this transference, and that's when we think about why didn't some things happen. It's not that we can't do it, it's that we didn't bring it with us. You showed up to class without your textbook, essentially. That's okay, I got to make sure the night before I put it in my bag. Okay, now I got to make sure I grab my bag. Now I'm ready to go. Right?
Okay, so maybe
I'm fine.
More equal parts, like exercises and etudes. Like, because I just described like 50, 25, 25.
Right.
But
exercises take up very little of it for me. Very little of what we're doing. The exercises allow us to look at it mechanically in a technically in a non-musical context or very limited musical context. Because as soon as you start playing with dynamics, things are going to start changing. As soon as you start playing with expression, things are going to start changing.
Yeah.
Right? So, when we talk about arpeggio studies, we should have a study that covers all of the major groups: PIM, PMI, PIA, PAI, PIMA, PAMI, PIMAMI.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Tremolo, anything, and then maybe specific ones that we have in certain rep. And then we cycle those. So we're always doing them. And when we get tired of them, we do something else. And when we played enough of them, just grab an excerpt out of a piece. If you wanted to do, like let's say you were doing Leanda and you had you want to do PMI. Okay, Brouwer 3. You're sick of Brouwer 3. Go to any number of things that have, or tremolo piece that has that, and you can be doing and just turn it into a study now for that particular thing.
Yeah.
So that you're always working that out.
Mm-hmm.
But then we work it out. Is it making its way into our rep? Mm. That's the big thing. And then it's made its way into our rep in our lessons. Now we got to make sure that happens in our performance. So it's always trying to bring that with us, and that's why we've got to always keep going back to this, because otherwise we make the big leaps, and I don't know if it's coming with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm getting the sense that's like it's okay to keep doing the unmusical exercises, but focus more on the excerpts.
Think about them as just technical exercises. Yeah.
The technical exercises. Mm-hmm. I like them because they are bringing in other like right hand patterns and like the Segovia. Like I am doing the different finger combinations, which I'm finding pretty helpful.
For
like,
which
for the scales. For the scales,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. As well as the slurs. The slurs are nice because there are a lot of different right hand combinations, like AMI ones and others.
And even that doesn't cover all of them. It just covers a lot of them.
Yeah.
But here's an example for you. Go ahead and get your guitar up. Let me make sure I'm in tune because it's been. All right. Close enough. All right. So, at any speed you want, play a scale. Any speed you want. Any scale you want. Good. Accurate. There it is. We could work on speed, right?
Yeah, I wanted accurate, but I still made mistakes. So, yeah.
We find out what those mistakes are, and then we try to correct or minimize them. But here's my question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how musical was that scale?
5, I feel, yeah. But like when I'm practicing more, and I've done it a few times, then I'm doing more crescendos. Like I might do more phrasing, like a cello rondo. But yeah, that was a 5. That was like getting my fingers moving the first time. Yeah.
Why can't you do? You can certainly do that the first time. So now, why don't you do that? But what? You can, right? Look, if someone said, like, I love this with it's like I'm in juries and I'm like, okay, ready? Play a scale. And the first thing that every single student does, and for every one of my students that's out there, former and future and present, the first thing they do is they play that scale. If this is how fast they can do it and it sounds great, they're going to do it right here. Right? It's like one step past where we can really nail it. And I can tell you, I think one time in a jury, I said, play me a scale. And someone did this. It was like, hey, that's great. I was kind of shocked. I was like, wait a minute. They didn't try to play it fast or didn't try to play it loud. This is the kind of thing where it's like, I didn't say play a scale really fast. I didn't say play this. Just play me a scale. Yeah. So we can do like from the beginning, right? Be dealing. So if you were, do your scale again. You were doing C?
Yeah.
So right off the bat, before you start, decide how loud you want to start and and how much you want to increase to that C. So like play the first C. Now play the next octave C. Okay, so there is your dynamic destination.
Yeah.
So now you want to be able to hear that. That kind of increase as you go. That was already better. Already better, because now we get to see what that technique does when you express something. See, that's the thing is if we could have every little exercise under the word and just like nailing them all, like I got this great, and then I go to express something and then we find it's not, why doesn't it work? So what I'm thinking of is if I'm going from this C to this C, where's my middle point? So I want to go from here to here and here to here. So now I'm just going to shape the first one.
Yeah.
That's it. Do that. Nice. Now from that point, now we've got to go, right?
Yeah.
Great. Now, let's stop there.
Yes.
We won't come down. Do you hear how the color on those last three notes are different than all the others?
I didn't hear it that time.
It's on the brighter, snappier side. There. That's much better. The C is a little on the edge, but the A and the B at least went to it. What happened, I heard this. Like all of a sudden, those three jump out, right? Yeah, a little edgy. So there you go. Now, if this is the top, that's our destination. Right? So now play the whole scale knowing where you want each one of those to be. Now, that was a much better scale, and you're having to apply that technique over different strings and pushing the string with different amounts of pressure. So if I'm not going to play a piece where I go, where it's all the same, then I'm not going to practice that way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, ever. Like,
if it's an exercise, like if I'm just doing like,
right.
Or something like that.
Which has been our focus a lot because of, form issues, right? Like doing open strings and
But anytime that I want to like play a scale, I want it to be I want to make music. Now it doesn't mean I'm going to go like like we're not going off the deep end, right? But I can still play in time and do a crescendo. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and there you go.
Yeah.
Because now you're taking the technique and putting it into the actual like realistic application of when you see that scale.
Okay.
That to me is where exercises, we don't have enough time. It's like 2 chords or 1 chord, or we're not even playing a chord. We're just playing an open string. Right?
Right.
So if we were to do those slur exercises musically, right? If you're going, then what would happen?
Right.
We're going to maybe do a crescendo.
I try to keep that even in the technical exercises. Like, I try to include crescendos. I try to include shaping. So as long as I don't lose sight of musical phrasing and musical shape, like it's
The purpose of doing this now is to say, okay, so what happens that I didn't intend with my technique? So do that scale with that crescendo one more time. And this time what we're going to do is pay attention to, okay, got great sounds coming out. So what happens? What works well and what doesn't? Now, go right to your third string and just pluck that speed, open strings. Do you notice anything about your right hand? Anything that's different in the scale? Anything?
I mean, it's easier to do just on
Oh,
one
yeah.
string than,
Of course
than with the string crossings.
Did you notice that your index finger had a tendency to straighten out more in the scale than it does here?
I didn't. No, I didn't notice it.
Just do the scale like just a little bit going up. You don't even have to do the whole thing. Now go back to the open string. Do you notice how when you're on the open string, your index finger has a greater sense of follow through and it doesn't make shorter motions?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So here's what I want to try. Take that. Right. We also have some nail placement things with M you can hear, right? If there's tension in that tip joint, as M comes down, you miss the pad to stop the string, and it's the nail against the string, so you hear this.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, only when you're on the open string, right? So you're getting a little bit of that zap. Now, instead of letting the finger just immediately come down, imagine you're doing an eighth note and an eighth rest. Now, think place, play, place, play, place, play. So ba, rest, ba, rest. See how that middle finger doesn't quite want to do that? It's just immediately going down. So try this with me. We're going to go place, play, 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 place, play. Do you hear how your preparation is a little less noisy now? That's starting to get rid of some of those artifacts. Now, I want you to do it at mezzo piano. Place, play, ready, go. Place, play, place, play, place, play, place, play, place. There. Right there. You hear that sound? That. There's a really nice tone that you're getting. There. It really controlled. That's where you want to stay.
Yeah.
That. There you go. You want that sound in your ear and that feeling on your fingers. Right? So your index finger's working a little harder than it needs to. Your middle finger right now, man, has this like velvet tone. And it doesn't sound like ta. It sounds like ta. Right? And that's one of the things when you're doing that. Normally I wouldn't say practice soft, right? I mean, we want to practice with some volume. But the thing is here is you're not using anything more than you need, and you're not hearing any of the zap, any of the brightness, any of the edge. It's all there. So now can you apply that here? Just do that octave.
Right.
It's going to feel just like the open string. Right there. You hear that? Man. The tone itself is warmer. It's more uniform. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the way you played the scale before, how much less are you playing? How much less energy are you using now?
Yeah, way less. I think like 6 or something.
And in my opinion, you're giving it 60%, 40% less effort, but getting a lot more in return. Okay. Without tuning down, I'm gonna go. Yeah, go ahead and drop your. forget the introduction, just start the waltz.
Okay.
But it should feel that way when you attack the string. Right there's where it started to come back, right? Because you hear how things started to get a little bit more poppy. But man, those first couple bars, you had that going on. So when you listen to the recording and you hear the tightness in the playing, that right there, this is how we get it. What are we doing? Exercise. I'm going to lighten my touch. Get that really noiseless plant. And the reason I had you do place play is just so we have a timed preparation, so we're controlling when and how that finger goes down. Then we did.
Yeah.
Then we did. Nothing's popping out. Try it again. That scale was the best time I've ever heard you do that. That was smooth. Nothing was popping. Nothing was edgy. Awesome.
Cool.
How did we get it?
Yeah, just like all of these like incremental, like individual things. Yeah. But like, I mean, but notice that we did just practice the scale with IM
Yep.
and a lot of planting and attention to tone there. But then this part is hard because of the AM exchange.
Okay.
Right?
So that's one of the reasons why we can do, I mean, we're just doing a scale with I&M right now, right?
Right.
There are two ways around that. One, IA scales, or not even scales, just the exercise, just doing AI in the same fashion,
Right.
and then MA in the same fashion.
Yeah.
MA will never be as fast as IM or IA, and that's okay.
Right.
It just, you won't be able to sustain MA that long, that fast. Then what's the next thing we can do?
Right.
Right? So if we do,
Like right hand only sort of thing. Yeah. This is exactly what Marko was also recommending.
oh, no kidding, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Like practice this more right hand only and
Now, we can't, I'm not going to say you practice like the whole piece that way. Okay? Because at some point, it's going to have diminishing returns. But if you've got that, then just doing that much. Right? And then, what's the scale? So if you're going A, M, I, M, I, M, A, or whatever your fingering is.
I'm doing like breaststroke M, I think.
Yeah.
No. Maybe.
So then you would slowly go through that just like we did with this into the scale. So if it was
Yeah.
M, slur, I, M, I, M, I, A, M, or whatever it is that you're doing, just that spot.
Yeah.
So any spot where that kind of struggle happens, we can't just take a second and get the right hand fingering there. But if you need to, come back to this and that sound. Okay? If you were the type of player that came in and this is what you did, I would have you do the exact opposite. I'd have you do this. And just play everything as loud as you can, but not fast. So that we start dealing with, okay, well, what is it? I'm bringing a little too much tightness to my playing, then get rid of it.
Yeah.
Right? Because what's going to happen is we're going to level out. Right? You're not actually going to stay down there. You're going to get comfortable with it, and then as you play, it'll come to the middle.
Yeah.
Okay? So for next week, I mean, you decide if you want to retire the piece. I think you should keep going with it personally.
Yeah, I mean, I want to keep it in maintenance and keep it in the constant rotation, I guess, like for performances, but...
I'd say play it for the next masterclass you're in, whenever that is.
Yeah, I think
It doesn't have to be like a one-off. Like, keep it going. There's my first one. Let me get a next one.
Totally.
And then obviously November 7th. As far as for preparation for next week, scales, Brouwer studies, we're going to finish those up.
Yeah.
And then if you would like to, you've had a certain amount of concentration on this piece now. If you'd like to put it on a back burner for a week or so in lessons, that's fine. Otherwise, I would say, hey, how much of this can you apply to that piece and then play next week?
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to do lessons on some other music, but I will continue to be applying all of this to this piece and everything, I think.
You got it.
So, okay. Cool.
Okay, so you pick, it's player's choice as far as your rep next week. But we want to now run through all the Brouwer studies that we have as a performable unit and then work on the new one.
Okay.
In addition to scales with that kind of preparation, don't worry about speed, just get that sound. And crescendo and decrescendo.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, I think I have to go.
I do too. I have to go grill some burgers for the kids. All
Yeah,
right?
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah.
You're
really
welcome. I will
appreciate
see you next Friday.
Awesome. Yeah.
All
See
right.
you next Friday.
Bye, everybody watching. Thanks for watching.
All right. Yeah. Thanks to everybody for watching. I don't know if anybody is still here. Nice lesson. Okay, bananas are good. Trying to fix my hand too. Yeah, I've got a lot of right hand things to work on. Drop some comments. Let me know that you all enjoyed this. Give me a like and subscribe. I've got an app called Mujo. Go check that out. Patreon if y'all want to directly support. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching.